Tanova Tila Ross was a 33-year-old from Jackson, Michigan. She had a daughter and two sisters. In the afternoon of February 2nd, 2020, videos showed Tanova walking away from her room at a motel with a bag of items. She was never seen again. I'm Ed Densel, and this is Unfound. Oftentimes, when you hear these stories about everything going on before these people go missing, you can't help but think, wow, they had a lot going on. Seriously, how many disappearances has Unfound featured where someone having issues with a child, with addictions, with money, with a relationship, with work? All of them. Maybe not all, but at least 3 or 4 in a combo. You get to thinking, this person certainly could not have handled much more. This is just a very short list of people who come to my mind when I think on this topic. Rebecca Gary, Jake Lachelet, John Spira, and most recently, Tanya Sadecki. This doesn't mean all of these types of people disappear for the same reasons. It just means we question how they would have continued to live their lives had they not gone missing. Well, with Tanova Ross, we have a woman who had a lot going on. And what exactly happened when she had her hands full? And now a summary of the case. At birth, Tanova received one of the most unique names you will ever see. Tanova was a well-behaved child, but early on, even before Tanova's teenage years, she began to show signs of mental health issues, although nothing was initially done. Not until Tanova was in her late teens was anything attempted to bring her mental health issues under control. However, in the process, Tanova began a drug addiction that grew and grew right to the point of her disappearance. During this time, she had a daughter and ended up moving back in with her parents, who were incapable of stopping the path Tanova was on. Yet, not long before her disappearance, Tanova had been moved to a local motel in Jackson, with her daughter remaining behind with the grandparents. So, on February 2nd, 2020, video at the America's Best Motel in Jackson, Michigan captured Tanova stumbling away from her room, carrying a large bag with seemingly many items inside. She was never seen again. When Tanova's family could not reach her by phone, her next oldest sister went to the motel on February 4th. What she found in Tanova's room was incomprehensible. Although there were no signs of violence necessarily, the room was a disaster. The tub was filled with water to the top, and Tanova's purse, along with everything in it, were submerged. A blanket and Tanova's cell phone were also in the tub. A search of the area revealed some of what Tanova had been carrying that day on the edge of the motel property. Since then, searches have revealed nothing more. I realize I'm a medical amateur, but the more I do disappearances of Tanova's type, the more I am convinced that many people start their drug addictions due to underlying genetic mental health issues that have never been addressed. Contemplate whether this is a real thing, while you also try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, given Tanova's condition, she couldn't have gone far. Then why haven't searches found her? Number 2, are you inclined to believe both 911 callers correctly identified Tanova along the nearby highway that day? And number 3, how are we to explain the motel's reaction to Tanova's family's attempts to find out what happened to her. Tanova's family is not sure what happened, but they are open to a few possibilities. The guest for this episode is Tanova's next oldest sister, Tamara. Unfound News. I hope you are enjoying my ongoing interview with Jason Blair. Part 3 will be out soon. That will be the last part. As for part 2, did you know he was that guy? Next, the work continues on the new Unfound database. The plan is still for it to be finished by the end of August. It will be the first of its kind. Finally, next Friday, August 1st, is my birthday. You now have plenty of time to plan your celebrations. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound, Tamara. She and I are going to discuss the disappearance of Tanova Ross. Tamara, welcome to the episode. Welcome to Unfound.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Let's start here. Your connection to Tanova Ross, your connection, you could just talk about yourself a little bit, who you are. You can do that right now, please.
Yeah, so Tanova is my sister. She was the last child, so I'm the middle child. That was my sister that went missing.
Okay, I guess you're an older sister. How many years difference between the two of you?
I'm the middle child. There's 3 years difference between.
All right, not many.
Tanova and I.
Not many. Okay, how many kids, how many sisters, brothers, siblings in your family? And of course, if there are half brothers, half sisters, you can include them as well.
3 sisters. The older sister is Tanisha. I'm the middle child, Tamara. And then the youngest is Tanova.
Man, your parents really loved the name with T. Is there some significance there?
Yeah, my mother's name was Tiny, so she named all of her daughters with a T.
Okay, all right. All right. That's her name was her real name, or no? Her real name couldn't have been Tiny.
No, it was. In 60, when she was born, she was a preemie, only 1 pound, 6 ounces. They didn't think she was going to make it, and when she did, their parents named her Tiny.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a fantastic story. That's the first I'm hearing that. Okay. And, of course, Tamara, your name, maybe a little rare today, maybe a little more popular, maybe a few decades ago, but Tanova is certainly unique. Do you know where your parents got her name?
Yes. My mom, this is strange again, named her after Ova. My grandpa's name is Ova.
Okay.
And he had his own mechanic shop, when they grew up, he owned his own business or whatever, and his, all-time favorite car was a Nova. And so my mom came up with Tanova.
Wow. I bet she's the only Tanova ever in the history of the world, maybe.
Has to be. My mom, made the name up.
Yes.
Tanova. So.
Oh, wow, that is fantastic. That's a great story. Okay, Tanova, I love it. That's a great name. It is a great name. I congratulate your mother on being so creative with that. Okay, so everybody knows where her name came from. Maybe if you could just, maybe for a few minutes, all of your sisters growing up close, would you say you were close with Tanova growing up? Maybe explain a little bit about the Ross home, please.
Well, Tanova, she was obviously my little sister, but Tanisha is the oldest, and Tanova were a lot more close than her and I. So I'm the middle child. I guess I wasn't first and I wasn't last, so those two really bonded a lot. So they were always close, stayed friends, fighting, loving each other, whatever sister dynamics. I, on the other hand, wasn't as close to neither one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I was more of the older child.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I wasn't, so I kind of, I don't know. I just was distant from them. But they still were my sisters.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for being transparent about that, so forthcoming. Okay. So would you say those two were maybe just a little more alike than you were kind of maybe a different personality, different social style, maybe?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Now of course, we're here because of Tanova going missing. And, maybe you weren't as close to her, but certainly you knew your sister. Talk about her personality, hobbies, interests. When you think of Tanova maybe going back to her teenage years, what are some of the things that come to mind?
Tanova was outgoing. She was a people pleaser, very friendly. I mean, you're not going to meet anybody, honestly, that can say really anything negative about her personality. She was loving, caring. She didn't know you should still try to be there for you. One of her downfalls is I think she was a little socially awkward, but she would try to fit in, and I think that's, that was some of her problems.
Mm-hmm.
So.
When you say something like that, is this something that you noticed early on being her older sister, or?
Yes.
You did.
So my older sister has always had a drug problem.
Yeah.
So when she was 16, we left for Texas, and when we came home for vacation, it was like, I think this was Thanksgiving time, we went to see my mom's brother for a week. Mm-hmm. And when we came back home, she ripped off everything in our house. I mean, we didn't even have nothing. I'm talking the junk drawer in the kitchen was even emptied. The one where you just throw like odds and ends.
Yeah.
Like things that, I mean, everything was gone. And so Tanova being close to her, they kind of she followed her footsteps in a lot of ways. She was pre-exposed to everything because that's what her favorite sister was into.
Okay. Did you ever try to being you're also an older sister, and you already stated, she's so closer to your older sister. You ever try to talk to her about that? And, maybe she was in her teens, you can't be doing that, or just fall on deaf ears. What can you say?
I did do all of that, to the point that everybody kind of shunned me because I was a little too harsh, a little too crass with them. I really just telling everybody about themselves. Nobody wants to hear it. And then my mother was super protective over her. She was the last,
right.
And, you don't have to be like that. And, well, everything I was saying was true. And I guess if it's harsh, I'm sorry, that was the reality. Mm-hmm. So.
How old would you say it was when Tanova maybe or started showing some of the things you're talking about here? When you talk about you going back there and everything was missing from the house, what year are we talking about?
Oh,
just roughly. If you're off a couple years, that's totally fine. Just to kind of give us an understanding.
So maybe I'm thinking maybe 96.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. So she's 47. Mm-hmm. So she was 16. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was going on for quite a long time.
Okay. All right. So you go back, and this maybe has a negative. Unfortunately, it made an impression on her, and it should have maybe been a negative impression, but that's not the way it went.
Tanova was so little then, so
yeah.
If I was maybe 11, I don't know, 10, 12, somewhere around those, so she was 3 years younger than that, so we were talking 7, 8 years old.
Okay.
So she not really understanding or grasping that, I guess.
Okay. What about some of her interests, hobbies? She into anything, music and art, or what do you think about interested in anything like that?
She was I mean, she was intelligent. She could have went far, but Tanova had mental issues. She graduated. She ended up having a child with her high school boyfriend. They moved in together. Tanova's, I'd say, mental state declined. Tanova was schizophrenic.
Oh, okay.
So I would say she probably had multiple personality disorder. She had, I don't know all the extent of her medical records because they all kept things like that. Oh, they didn't really tell me or disclose any of that to me.
Right.
For reasons, they would hide all the activities and things that were going on because obviously if you don't approve, you don't want that person knowing that they're not with it.
Right. And once again, in your opinion, once again, I understand you're not a professional in the field necessarily, but when do you think that Tanova started showing these signs of mental health issues?
Always.
Wow.
Tanova, yeah. So, like I said, she was kind of socially awkward. She just, you could tell there just wasn't something right with her. I mean, she was cognitively there, reading, writing, understanding things like that. But in other areas, you can just tell that something wasn't right, if that makes sense.
Okay,
I really don't know how to explain that.
All right, that's fine. I understand. You're a layperson.
Very naive. Yeah.
You just get a sense of she's maybe just a little different than most of the other people that you were interacting with.
Yeah.
Okay, that's totally fine. I totally get it. And certainly, as you would imagine, Tamara, we talk a lot about mental health issues over the past 9 years. So I appreciate you just saying what you're saying, just looking at it from a layperson's point of view. Did she ever take any medication or anything like for this ever as a teenager into her 20s? Ever any treatment?
Yes, Tanova was on medication.
Okay.
She was on plenty of medication.
Okay.
She had mental and health problems. She had a hysterectomy shortly after she had her first child.
Wow.
So, and yeah.
Okay.
And then things spiraled after that.
Okay.
A lot of things spiraled with her.
Okay, well let's get into some of those things. You did say that she had a child with her when she was in her teens, and so she just has one child.
Yep.
Just
Tylen is her daughter's name.
Okay. And so you said spiraling, and are we talking about drug addiction?
All of it, yes.
All of it.
Drug addiction as well, yeah.
Okay. Getting into
I think the pills started that.
Okay. When this started to happen, I realized that she was closer, as you stated, to the oldest sister, not you. Would you try to talk to her about these things? Was there talking to her about any of this? Did she ever try to go to rehab? What can you say about all this? Of course, we're talking an extended period of time. She went missing when she was 33, 5 years ago. So it would have been an extended period of time that she was doing these things. And ever get any help? You talk to her, maybe your mother or some other person she trusts, try to talk some sense into her.
No, my mother just kind of hid the stuff, like brushed it under the rug. But they did try several times to get her locked up in a mental situation, the hospital because of her situation.
Yeah.
But the courts I don't know, they would lock her up and then the doctors would just let her right back out when she clearly should have stayed. So they've tried. I mean, my mom, she did try, but no rehab. So that's just, they didn't really want to ever admit that was a problem with her.
Okay. Was she able to hold down any jobs all this? What did she do for money? What went on there?
Yeah, so she was working full-time employment when Tylen was a baby.
Okay.
And then Tanova got into a car accident and totaled her brand new van she got. And kind of after that, things just kind of went downhill for her. She moved out of her apartment and back in with my parents.
Okay.
And she got one more apartment after that, but it was more like a government subsidized, but she was never there. She still stayed with my parents. So, and had a room there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, mentally, she was like a recluse, kind of. Like, she just stayed, like, to herself. And then sometimes she would, like, come out and mingle with the people that were at the house, because my other sister stayed there on and off, too, would be her friends.
Okay.
So most of Tanova's friends were Tanisha's friends.
Okay. How did Tanova treat you when you would go over there?
We were cordial and everything was good up until the end when we had like a big spat. So prior to that, she was fine. Everything was okay. I just didn't agree with her parenting skills, so we got into it a lot.
Okay. That happens even in families and parents who don't have addictions and mental health issues. Of course, those things can pop up. You know, people criticizing how other people are parenting, and maybe sometimes people are right, but of course that happens. That happens even in my own family more than once. So, okay. So she's living at home. I mean, what time frame are we then talking? Into her 20s? Of course, once again, she was 33 when she went missing, but you know, throughout her 20s, she continued to live there. Did she end up getting her own place? Was she taking care of her daughter? Or was somebody else taking care of her daughter? What was going on with that in her 20s?
So, pretty much, she was always with her daughter. She's never been without her daughter. She's never left her daughter. She would never leave her daughter. She wouldn't even leave the house, really. So she was always there, but under my parents' supervision also. So my mom was always home, and she was always home with my mom. So they were always, all of them together all the time. And Tanova never, she's pretty much lived with my parents forever. Okay. She was living in their house right up almost to the time she disappeared.
Okay. I have to ask then, it's because this is what I do. No. I have to ask then, if she was staying with your parents, she was still getting drugs?
Yes.
How was that happening, to the best of your knowledge?
She would go down the street, meet the dealer or whoever, go on a walk. She always walked Molly, the dog. My mom's Shih Tzu. She always walked the dog and then come back, and then after she'd come back, she'd act funny. My dad a few times would get in the car and try to, like, follow her to see what she was doing, but it never turned out well, so it was just an argument.
Okay. So that was going on, and even though she was still living at home, she was being crafty about it, I guess.
Yes.
You know, getting around. We're not saying here that, of course, your parents did not want her doing drugs, but she was going to lengths to make sure she could have access.
Yeah, they've told her, you can't really make someone quit doing drugs. They're going to get it by any means necessary if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right, so this is going on, and, the daughter's still there. Doesn't sound like the greatest situation. She's reclusive, but she's going out to get drugs, coming home. And this kid was continuing right up to, like you said, just about the time that she disappeared.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. And did you ever talk to your parents? What was of course, if she doesn't go missing, what What exactly was the plan? Your parents just going to allow her to live there forever? Was there? What do you think the plan was? Because I'm guessing that Tanova was a topic of conversation with your parents at least once.
Okay, so right before she came up missing, I had an extra house that I redid for like a rental, but the house that my parents were staying in wasn't the greatest, so I ended up giving them the other house, and they moved into that. And so Tanova and Tanisha, they let them stay in the other house. And my dad was like, you guys need to give me, $7,000 down. You need to give me this XYZ a month, whatever. I had the conversation with him before Tanova disappeared. I was just like, you can't really expect, honestly, two drug addicts with mental problems to hold a job. They can't hold a job now as it is, or to pay you. So this whole situation is just set up to fail. It's not going to work if that's what you want them to do.
Okay.
Well, they moved in a bunch of drug dealers and whoever else into that home, some real seedy kind of people to get money to pay him so that they weren't thrown out onto the street. And that never happened, so my dad ended up selling the house, but he was going to sell it to this other guy first, this Michael Root. And my dad found out that Michael Root was going to sell it for, I don't know, $3,000 or $4,000 more than what he was going to sell it to him for. And Michael Root went to the lengths of getting my sisters out of there, getting a U-Haul, moving all their stuff, and right before he moved to Nova, my dad told him, no, I'm not going to do this no more. And he was kind of upset, but he still moved to Nova from the house and paid and put the hotel room in her name. So he moved her out of the house, even though he's not going to get the house, and him and my dad are arguing, and moved to Nova, and then my dad sold the house. So.
Who this Michael, how is he connected to Tanova? How'd they know each other?
They didn't. They didn't. He just was, he was actually a mutual friend with every last one of the people that were living in the house.
Okay.
And my dad knew him too. Not really sure how that transpired, but he actually was friends with everybody there that they kicked out.
Okay. So they're in this house, and this becomes kind of a drug house type of situation, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
Okay.
It did. Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then she got moved, and and when we say hotel, are we talking about this America's Best Place in Jackson, in Michigan?
Yes.
That's the place we're talking about.
There.
Okay.
Yep.
Once again, what were you doing during this time? What were you doing with your life? Were you aware that all of this was going on, or did you not find out about a lot of this stuff until after she went missing?
I knew a few months prior to that they were going through all of this, like fighting, and my dad threatening to kick them out, and them trying to come up with the money, and I stayed to myself, so I'd just get phone calls here and there from my sisters asking for money or, whatever, and I'd get bits and pieces, and then I'd call my dad, and that's just kind of what I knew, but I did not know that they actually got kicked out.
Huh.
I believe they got kicked out around, like, New Year's time,
Okay.
or right after. So I didn't know that. I didn't even know my sister Tanisha moved out. I didn't know that this guy moved my sister to Nova. I didn't know.
Did Tanisha move to the America's Best as well?
No, he didn't move her there.
He didn't.
No, he gave her money and a U-Haul, and she went elsewhere, and then he moved to Nova into the America's Best.
Okay. All right, so you're kind of vaguely aware, but obviously not involved in any of this at all.
No.
You're just kind of, you're just a spectator, almost as if it's not even your family, just kind of watching this from the side.
Yeah, almost, yes.
Okay, all right, once again, I realize you're disconnected from this, you're just a spectator to all this, you're not involved, you're not in any of these decisions, and, your father's not asking you for advice on what you should do. It's totally out of your hands.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay, I have to ask, what did your mother think about all this? If you can say.
Well, my mom was going through a lot of health problems at the time, and I didn't know that either. She was sick, so she was getting ready to have another back surgery, and she was in and out of the hospital. So it was kind of like, she said, Lenny, you deal with this stuff. She wasn't in the best of health.
Okay. Did you, after Tanova got moved to the America's Best, did you ever go see her there? Did you ever talk to her? I mean, at this point, how often were you communicating with her? Late 2019 into 2020.
I hadn't spoke to Tanova for probably 8 or 9 months prior to that.
Wow.
We were in a dispute over her child, just the parenting situation,
Okay.
And so we just didn't talk. So I had no clue any of this happened, and I went up north to Charlevoix for the weekend. I had some business stuff I had to take care of, and I chose to go up there to deal with everything. And one night I just started thinking of Tanova. I'm like, something's wrong. I didn't even know why. I actually came back early. I came back that Monday. So it was Super Bowl Sunday. I came back on the 3rd, and I wasn't planning to, but I just couldn't get Tanova off my mind.
Huh.
And I came right back, and I drove right to Blackman, to the house, and my dad was outside. And I pulled up on him, and I'm like, where's the girls? And then he kind of told me a little bit about this stuff. I'm like, well, where's Mom? She said she's in the hospital.
Huh.
And so I went right up there to my mom.
Right.
And then she told me Tanova was at the America's Best. And I'm like, well, have you guys talked to her? Mm-hmm. Why would you let her go there? She's like, your dad is going to go get her. He's just taking care of a few things, and he's going to go get all of her stuff out of there and bring her home. I'm like, you better do that. Like, that is not a good place.
Yeah.
And we were calling her right then, and her phone just kept going to voicemail. And I'm like, he's like, just relax. Your dad just talked to her on Saturday. I'm like, on Saturday? Like, what?
And so how long ago in this day, and what day was this? What day was it?
Monday.
All right, so
Monday night.
All right, so over 2 days later, over 48 hours later.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the 3rd. And then I'm like, and then I'm starting to think about Thailand. And then on Tuesday, I'm like, I had my niece come stay the night with me, and I'm talking to her. She hasn't talked to her mom either. And I'm like, well, where is she at? And do you know the room and this and that? So that would be the 4th. The next day I was like, that's it. After she spent the night with me, I'm like, you're going to take me out there, but you're going to sit in the car. I want you just to tell me what room she is. Because honestly, I was panicking inside. Like, I just knew something was wrong.
I can understand that, sure.
I honestly, I thought I was going to go there and find her dead. I did not think she was alive. There's no way that my sister's phone would be off because, again, she has mental problems, and she could not go anywhere with the dead phone. Like, she'd have to talk to her daughter, and she's just never really been away from anybody, and she just couldn't do that as a person. Like, she could never go on vacation and leave my parents or her kid. She just would, she'd come home.
I do have to ask if I may just jump in for a second. So she gets moved to the America's Best. Where is her daughter then?
With my parents.
Right. Okay.
They wouldn't let her go there.
Of course not.
So.
Okay, so the daughter's with your parents. Tanova gets moved over to this America's Best. Nobody has spoken to her for a couple days. That Saturday into Monday into Tuesday. Finally, you decide, you know what? I got to find out what's going on, even though you haven't talked to her and seen her in quite a long time. So you go over there, and what happens?
So my niece shows me, it's like right up front, room 111 was the room she was in. She pointed it out. So it was like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 rooms tops from the office. So I pulled the kids up by the office because I had my daughter with me as well. And because I didn't know what I was going to find at this room. So
Sure.
I parked the car and I walked down there. There was nothing, no answer, nothing. So I went into the office, and the clerk and the office manager was well aware of Tanova being gone from her room and all of this. But in the beginning, they acted like they didn't know if she was in there or not. Like, they're like, oh, I don't know. Then after, I was like, well, I need you to let me in there. We haven't spoke to her. They're like, we can't do that. And I'm like, well, I can call the cops then. And she's like, well, they can't. Nobody can. She's paid until this day. We can't just go in her room. That's illegal. I said, okay, well, then you call the cops because I'm kicking the door in. Because my sister, something's wrong. She's like, no, I'll let you in. But you can't tell anybody I did that. I was like, okay, either way. I mean, I can go to jail after I mean, something's wrong. Like, this is worth it. Like, so she lets me in there, and the room was just, it looked like a tornado went through it.
Wow.
So it was crazy. The bathtub was completely full of water with a blanket in there, hangers, clothes, bottles. Like, somebody filled the bathtub up and just filled it with the stuff. It was, and the toilet had a syringe in it and some pills.
Wow.
It looked like somebody just dumped the whole bottle in there.
Huh. Were a lot of, like, clothes and things in there? I mean, or maybe I should ask you this. Did it look like any violence had happened in there?
I mean, you couldn't tell if violence happened because
okay, gotcha.
It was like somebody emptied out everything and just like sprinkled the stuff all over. It was just so weird. Like, the trash can was turned upside down. Everything that was on the counter was like smeared onto the floor. Like, it was a wreck. But you couldn't even have lived like that. Like, everything was overturned.
And please remind us, how many days or weeks had she been living in that room by that point? How long?
And see, this is the thing. I still to this day don't exactly know, because I've never been able to get anything that, like, from the cops have never really told me. They're vague on everything. They don't discuss anything. Like, they're not like saying anything. Nobody in my family can remember because they didn't actually put her there. So nobody, I don't really know. I'm guessing like a week, maybe 2 tops. I wouldn't say more than 2 weeks.
All right, so let's just use 2 weeks. So we're here like February 4th, maybe February 5th. So now we're going back to roughly January 20th. And, the place looks like a bomb hit it.
Yes.
Okay. What'd you do next? Maybe I should ask you, how did this employee react when the door was opened and it was like that?
So I looked around. I just was scanning everything, and I looked down, and by the trash can, I seen a pair of rubber gloves. So I asked her. I said, "Have you guys been back in here?" And she's like, "Not since Saturday." And she didn't really have a clear excuse, but then as I talked to her, she's like, well, because nobody was there, so we can't enter the room. And I'm like, but that's not true, but whatever. So I let her, she just backtracked or whatever. I said, so you haven't been here to clean, you haven't been here to do nothing. She acted like completely surprised. And she's like, no. I'm like, well, do your cleaning ladies wear gloves, like to protect their hands or anything. She's like, nope, nobody wears gloves. I'm like, nobody wears gloves at all. She's like, no, I don't supply gloves and they don't wear gloves. And I'm like, I look down, I'm like, well, whose are those? Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I said, have the cops been in here? Because they look like law enforcement. And she's like, no, there's no cops been in here, but I'm going to roll back the cameras and double check that nobody's been here. If they would, I'd have to know about this. So that was kind of like how she acted, like just completely surprised about everything. And she was going to get down to the bottom of where those gloves came from.
Okay.
And we left, and I went and called the cops.
Okay. And when you were going through there, did you find Tanova, did she carry a purse? Did you find a phone, her ID, any items like that in the room?
So weeks went by, and I didn't get anything from the cops. Well, the first week went by, still nothing, but I went into the room to clean up her stuff and to look for, honestly, any clues or evidence of anything. So I looked at receipts, last place she went, because there was receipts from Pizza Hut Wingstop. She got wings that day on Saturday. There was other stuff in there. I didn't find anything yet, like no phone, no purse, no nothing yet, no wallet, nothing like that, until another week went, right before she checked out. So I emptied the bathtub out. And I found her phone in the bottom of the bathtub.
In the water, like you said, it was filled to the brim and to the rim. And then once it got drained out, her purse was in the water.
Yes, it was in the water. Her phone, her wallet, Tylen's birth certificate, her birth certificate, her credit card, her bank card, her EBT card, her child support card. All of it was in there. Everything was at the bottom. I didn't even know until I drained it. And then I pulled the purse out. And that was actually the same purse that I watched on camera. She was disoriented walking around the day that she disappeared. And one room over, she leaned against it thinking that was her room, obviously. And she fell in it because the door had been kicked in by somebody else, and it was on the list to be repaired, so it didn't really have a lock on it. And she fell in it, and she was in that room for about 20 minutes before she came out. And when she came out, she had no purse.
But her purse did end up being back in her own room.
Yes, it did. And the lady, Kelly, because when I watched the film, I wrote notes on things I need to figure out, key points. She was supposed to get down to the bottom of how that purse ended up, because she's seen the purse. Because I brought the purse to her, because at the time I thought I could confide in her and trust her. So, I mean, I still don't know if I can to this day, because, but things were just odd. But she never found out who and how the purse got back there.
Okay.
With her wallet.
Let's maybe backtrack a little bit. So you call the cops. Do they show up? What do they do? What happens?
Yeah, the cops show up. They come to my house because that's where I made the report. I don't know if it's like Detective or Officer Bolter. The Bolter, he shows up because there's two of them at that department. They're brothers. Okay. They're twins, I think. Wow. So, he shows up and he says, "Oh, yeah, I know your sister. Oh my gosh, I was just at her room a few days prior. She had flooded out her room with the bathtub. It was full of blankets and stuff. This is a different room, not that room. And she wouldn't let me in, and she was just really worried about her phone. She needed a charger and her phone, and she wouldn't let me in, but she would let the hotel clerk lady in. He said she was fine, but I do understand your concern with her phone being off. He said because she was really weird about her phone. So he made the report, said he was going to go to the hotel and figure out what was going on. And he said he already pinged her phone before he got to my house, and it wasn't pinging. That was...
Who called? Why was he there? Did you find out who called him the first time around when he was there and encountered her before? What was the reason? Do you know?
Yeah, she flooded that room out.
She flooded
the hotel. Okay. Yes, she flooded it out because somebody wrapped her up in a blanket and put her in a bathtub with water. They're not even sure who. And she ended up waking up or whatever, calling the hotel clerk lady, and she came down there, and the cops got called for a welfare check because I don't know if my sister was answering the door, but I guess there was water coming out of the room.
Wow.
So Michael Root was called, the guy who checked her in, and he paid for the damages of the room and moved her to a new room.
So Michael Root sure is doing a lot for her, even though you said they don't know each other very well.
No, and that he was very upset with my dad and threatened my dad because he costed him a lot of money. So I still don't understand why he even continued to help this woman, my sister.
All right, so you're Tanova the first time around with the cop shop. She told them that somebody put her in the blanket and got in the bathtub. Are we sure she just didn't do that herself, or did she explicitly say that somebody did that to her, or what?
I don't know if she's like, I didn't hear that from the cops. This is like the lady, the hotel clerk when I was talking to her before. Okay. She was hanging out with some people. I'm not sure if she placed herself in the bathtub or somebody placed her in there, but
okay.
It sounds like maybe they thought my sister was gonna OD.
Yeah.
Or something. That's what I'm thinking. So therefore, I don't think she placed herself in the bathtub at that time. No, I don't.
Okay. So I guess what we're also saying is she did this. She was in the bathtub in this other room with the blanket and the water up to the top of the tub. And then when you go to the room that she was seemingly last in, it was kind of the same situation. Bathtub, filled to the rim, and kind of the same
odds and ends in it.
Kind of
yeah,
same
and then
thing.
the toilet had a bottle of pills dumped in it and a syringe. And when the police came to my house, I said, I just got to show you one thing. I said, before we get started, I want you to see these pictures, and I need you to tell me what you think. Yeah. So I showed them the pictures of the tub, the toilet, and the gloves. And I said, I just went through my pictures and just showed him. I said, now what do you think about that? And he looked at me and he goes, well, it looks staged. I said, exactly. Okay. I'm going to get down to the bottom of this for you. And he left.
Okay. Let's, all right, so we have the situation. You show up there, police eventually show up, and then eventually all of her items, her possessions that she would normally have with her are found in that tub. How did you get access to the video? Was that just freely shown to you, or what?
No, it took me over a week for her to allow me to come view it. And she viewed it on a flash drive. She would plug the flash drive in and said that's the flash drive that the cops dropped off for her to download the film.
Okay.
But it took about 3 weeks for them to even come pick that up. I'll get into that in a minute. But she would allow me to view it off of that. I viewed it twice. And then the third time she was acting really funny because I needed to get this evidence. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything and to get some more details on something that I had made connections with. And she's just like, I don't know. I have a lot going on in my life, and I'm really stressed out right now because my lights are going to get shut off, and it's cold out, and I have kids too, And I'm like, okay, so do you want me to pay your light bill? So I need to see this film. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, that would work. And she shot me immediately. Her consumer's energy bill was like $400. I paid it. And she let me come over the next day and view it.
She extorted you.
After that,
I guess she extorted you. That's nice to know.
She did. And I'm well aware of what she was doing. I'm not stupid, but
okay.
Who else wouldn't do that? I'm going to pay it to see this. I found some things that was leading up to my sister. So yes, I will pay it.
Okay. That is the first time, of course we know about video. This is the first time where somebody said, I'll show you the video if you pay my power bill. That is a first for this podcast, 9 years in. Okay. Strange things afoot. Strange things afoot at the America's Best in Jackson, Michigan. Strange things afoot.
Kelly is something else. Yeah, she's something else. I mean, she's like, she had it ready. As soon as I said yes, I mean, the text came right through with.
Okay, well, that's as long as it was like for the right days and everything. If you got to see what you got to see, that's better than a lot of people. What does the video show? How much video did you watch? What can you say?
She would only let me watch it in fast forward. Like, she can control how fast it goes, obviously, but she wouldn't. Like, everything was like, even when I wanted her to slow it down, she never really like slowed it all the way down. So it was just horrible. But it showed Tanova. She kept coming out of her room, going to the back of the hotel where she said those cameras don't work. She wouldn't let me view that. But I did see Tanova get in a vehicle and get out of a vehicle. I seen her talk to my dad on there. I seen a lot. And that vehicle and why I paid her light bill is one of the reasons why I wanted to see it again. But so it showed her leaving, coming back, being dropped off, and at the very end, it showed her falling into that room. And at the very end, it showed her stumbling. It's weird because when she was stumbling and walking to the back of the film, she didn't have all of these things in her hand, and then all of a sudden she has a basket and some other odds and ends in her hand at the very end. So she wasn't sure. Everything goes by motion and this and that with the cameras, but everything was like splotchy. I don't know, it just was really weird. And it showed her walking off camera at like 12:40 something.
PM or AM?
PM, sorry, with everything in her hand. Like, she had like a whole bunch of stuff. And then there was two calls right at that same time, like maybe like 5 or 10 minutes later, reporting her on one side of the highway and then reporting her on the other side of the highway. But it was really weird because...
All right, we don't want to get just too confused. I just want to stick to the video for now. So... regarding this, you obviously got to see her multiple times on the video that you got to watch, even though you didn't get to watch it at normal speed. You had to watch it at fast forward, so let's say 2 times speed. I have to ask you some questions. Regarding the car, has that car ever been identified? Do you know who that was that she was getting in the car with?
Yes. I spoke to them. I found the Jeep, and I went to their house.
Okay, don't mention any names, but... What did they have to say about that?
They said they picked her up.
Okay.
And they took her to a trailer park. They said they took her to Kroger. And she was seen at Kroger. My cousin seen her at Kroger.
Huh.
So everything they told me lined up.
Well, that's good. When you ended up talking to these people, were they aware that Tanova was missing? They were.
Yep, the mother was. That's how I found the Jeep. The mother was crying and called her niece, who was friends, grew up with us. And she said, "Oh my God, that girl you're talking about, that's Tamara's sister." And they called me immediately, and actually her sister was one of the people that were out helping me look for my sister. And we went right over to that house. And even though she was scared, at this point, we don't know anything that happened to Tanova. Right. She was scared that she was going to lose her last son because her older son...
I just don't want to get too far. It's a very simple question, Tamara. When you saw the Jeep on the video, you figured out who it was, and when you tracked these people down, did they already know that Tanova was missing?
They knew Tanova was missing. She had me come over there, and she was scared because, like I said, her older son is already doing life in prison for killing and dismembering somebody. So she was scared it was going to happen again. Her son was going to be entangled in something like that, even though she still told us everything she knew and allowed me to call the cops.
Okay. All right. And you also said on the video you saw Tanova talking to your dad. So your dad was at the America's Best?
Yes, he was there Saturday.
Okay.
And I'm not exactly sure, but I think he was letting her know that he would be picking her up in a day or two, like when he got done dealing with everything with my mom in the house, and he would be coming to, get her things around. And I guess she told him that she's not leaving.
Not leaving the America's Best. She didn't want to leave the America's Best.
Right.
Okay. And then you said that the last time you saw her on video was at 12:40 p.m., so in the afternoon, of that Saturday, which was, I think, February 2nd. February 1st. Okay? February 1st at 12:40 p.m. in the afternoon of Saturday is the last time you saw her on video.
Yes.
Okay. And you never saw her come back. So you see her go off camera and you never saw her come back.
Correct.
Okay. And to remind all of us, what was she...
Oh, wait. No. Oh, I'm sorry. So I seen her go off camera. That would have been the 2nd. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So the 1st was Saturday. She did leave and come back a couple times with the vehicle. So the 2nd would be Sunday.
Okay.
That's where it said she went off camera and never came back.
All right. And you saw that.
Yes, and I saw that.
Okay.
Well, I saw what they showed me.
All right, gotcha. I realize there may be things on there that you didn't get to see. I'm just asking you what you saw, your firsthand account. And what time was that that she was leaving the hotel on Sunday? When was that?
That was the 12:46 or something like that, 12:48. That's when she was walking off camera, showing her like disoriented, just kind of like falling all over, holding the wall to hold herself up, and carrying a basket full of stuff and a blanket on her shoulders.
Okay. All right. And as best as you could tell, was anybody with her? Did it look like anybody was following her? Did it look like she was going to, getting picked up by somebody? Anything like that?
Well, it looks like she was walking to a vehicle, and then there's like a parking lot right there. Mm-hmm. It's a dirt parking lot, but the cameras don't reach that part. So as soon as she walked off the steps out of the view, you can't see, but that's where the cars park and stuff. Okay. So I don't know what she was doing.
All right, so it's at least conceivable that maybe she was walking to a car or something, but unlike, like you said, her getting into the Jeep, in this particular section of the video, you don't see her getting in any vehicles.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you continue to watch, once again, in fast forward, did you watch the rest of the day? Did you see anything suspicious? Anybody trying to go into her room? Anybody hanging around the outside of her room? Anybody maybe knocking on the door? Anything like that?
She wouldn't let me see it past that.
Oh, she wouldn't? All right.
No.
All right.
I asked her, I wanted to watch further, like all up until I came or something. She said, I already viewed it. There's absolutely nothing until we went in that room, da-da-da. She just said that she has to go. She don't have time. She never let me see past.
All right. So that's paying her power bill was all you could get for paying her power bill.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. That's okay. Once again, I realize all sorts of families have done all sorts of extreme things to get access to information and everything. I'm not trying to put a humorous point on it, but that, just pay my power bill and then you can see the video. Okay. And
it's ridiculous, I know.
Yeah, I'm glad she followed through. I'm glad that, that worked out. Otherwise, I guess you don't get to see any of this.
Right.
Right. Okay. So she walks off on Sunday, February 2nd, coincidentally Groundhog Day, right there in the afternoon. And as far as we can tell, she never came back to the motel. Maybe she did, but you didn't get to see the video any further than that to be able to tell one way or another. I should ask you, of course, her phone, did she have more than one phone? I understand her phone ended up being found in the tub. Any chance that she might have had another phone that she could have been taking with her, or what do you think?
No, she only had that one working phone, so that's that's the only, I mean, if she had like another phone in her possession, it wasn't working. That was the phone she was using. I asked her daughter.
Okay.
Because I was worried about that as well.
Okay. Did you get access to her phone records to see who she was calling and texting up until the time on that Sunday that she walked away?
I did. Yep.
Anything jump out at you as unusual? Did you track these people down? What can you say?
Yeah, so she was talking to Michael Root, kept asking him, is that job still available out of town? I really want to go. Are we leaving? Somewhere along the lines about Monday. Something. All her messages kind of. She had something planned. Like they had something planned with her for Monday. A couple of the people, because she kept saying, "Well, Monday," and she needs the money, and told Michael Root she's willing to go Monday to that job he's offering, and that she's going to get rid of the last of stuff that he gave her, which I don't know what that means. It could be anything, right? So there were some things in there that was just really concerning. So she already told somebody else she needed a ride for Monday. So a lot of things were leading up to something on Monday.
I have to ask, have you spoken to Michael about this?
I did. I called him, and he just was kind of, he hung up on me.
Okay.
First of all.
Okay.
I asked him, like, so what about this job and my sister? And he's like, I've already talked to the cops. I'm cleared. And just, like, let me go. Like, hung up on me. Like, didn't want to answer anything I had to say. And shortly after that, he ended up deleting, like, a lot of stuff off his Facebook because I screenshotted everything that I possibly could. And I went back, and he deleted the group of friends. He even moved. Put on there that he quit selling houses and has connections in Jackson for like a year and a half. He went to Texas.
So he has never told you what Tanova meant about a job?
No.
Nope. Not one letter, not one syllable, nothing.
No. Nope. Said he already talked to the cops. He didn't have to answer my questions.
And did he talk to the cops? Do you think that's true? Do you think the cops know what they...
Well, the cops hadn't even picked up the film yet, so how would they have talked to him? They weren't even messaging me back.
Okay. So Monday was a big day, according to what you've been able to determine, and of course, seemingly, she goes missing before that. Did Michael, when he wasn't hanging up on you, how did he find out that Tanova was missing? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I don't know. We didn't really. It was very brief. Like he said he had to go. He had a meeting, and like just hung up. So he wasn't answering anything. He said he didn't have time. Basically, I kept like throwing questions out. I was like really frantic at the time. But he just hung up on me, and he's never answered again. I only called him a few more times after that. I wasn't gonna like go stalker mode and just blow his phone up. Right. So that wasn't gonna get me anywhere.
Right. Okay. Did he ever offer up an opinion as to why Tanova was missing?
No, he did not.
Okay. All right, so we just still here all this time later, still a big question mark as to what Tanova meant by a job. It didn't say job. I mean, it said job, but it wasn't like a specific name of a job like engineer or accountant. Nothing like that.
No, but I looked on a lot of Michael Root's past pages and stuff. Like I dove into him quite a bit. Okay. He had like OnlyFans situation going on. He was always looking for what we call models. It looks like he had been into that since he was a teenager. Like all his pages have got something to do with adult entertainment stuff.
Okay. All right, so maybe it had something to do with that then.
Maybe that's the biggest online footprint he has, stuff like that.
Okay. What about searches? Of course, she walks off. Maybe she got in a car, but maybe she continued to walk away. I do have to come back to something. There were these 2 calls that you mentioned before, maybe 20 minutes ago, that I want to bring up now. 2 calls from different people about seeing a woman near the highway or something. Isn't that right? What do you know about that?
So my cousin got a weird text from somebody on Facebook that they seen my sister walking up the on-ramp, and before anybody really knew the time, they said the time. They didn't contact me. They contacted another family member on the post talking about, this is my family member. So they said the time that they seen her walking up the on-ramp, which was around 1 o'clock. And so then I'm like, wait a minute. So I checked the calls in that area through the Blackman. They have a page for the dispatch. You can check calls and stuff. So I looked at there. I seen some things that were a little concerning, so I called Blackman Township. And he said he had 2 reports around that time for a female that would fit the description of my sister walking eastbound and then westbound right away. But like I said, at the time, that was all under construction. There were barricades set up with fences. There's no way you could have crossed over unless you were a monkey or a squirrel, because they just barricaded it with those cement barriers and then fences and stuff. And then the next exit down was completely gone. They tore the bridge out. It was all dirt. You weren't getting. They put a roundabout and stuff in there, so you weren't going to get onto the other side unless you walked all the way down 5 miles on the highway and then got off another exit and came back up. So that part didn't line up, the time frame. So I tried to get information or let them know that was a concern, but they just it's not a concern to them.
Just for, of course, most people probably have not been to this area. I've not been to this area. I've looked at this area on Google Maps, etc. As best as you can tell, these 2 people who called, maybe it was Tanova, maybe it wasn't. How close on the highway was it to where the America's Best? Because the America's Best is right at a Cloverleaf major interchange, I guess you might say. How close were these calls to the America's Best?
So the on-ramp is basically their front yard.
Right.
So where that dirt parking lot is, there's Starbucks and Akasushi right next door.
Yep.
So when you'd walk out, if you just walk over the hill and come down, you're coming down onto the on-ramp. Okay, so they've gotten a path. All the people's gotten a path beaten down. So they walk through that dirt path and down and the side of the exit onto the road and across the street to the Shell gas station. So there was a little beaten path right there. And then the area she was reported would be on the highway, but on the side of the America's Best. But there's a big fence and a treacherous hill. There's no way you could walk up that or walk down to get to it. You'd have to go on the on-ramp.
Okay. And both of these calls had to do with that same location, general same location. Very close to the America's Best. Very close.
Yes. Okay. The second call that would have been westbound was the next exit up.
Oh. So
it would have been Airport Road. So I don't know. That's how I said, she got on and walked up the on-ramp right there and was walking eastbound. There was no way she could have jogged all the way down there unless she was a track star and then went down to not the first exit but the second exit, turned around and came back and then got all the way 2 more exits past on the other side. It just didn't make any sense. Okay. There's no way possible it could have been the same person.
Are you inclined to believe at least one of these sightings was Tanova or not?
I don't believe it at all.
Neither. So just to be clear, you don't believe either of these sightings are her?
I don't believe the on-ramp was her. I don't believe the 2 calls on the highway were her. Okay. Because we got 3 feet of snow at that time. Like, and that's another thing. When she walked off camera, it was a sunny day on the film. But that day was the only day we got snow, was Super Bowl Sunday. So, snow, gloomy, snowing, or at least 50 degrees and sunny, which was a couple days prior. So, long story, but no, she wouldn't have been walking up the on-ramp with all that snow. There's no way. Tanova was not athletic at all, and you would have at least, all stumbling like she was, falling all around on the film. No.
Okay.
There's just no way. She would have been laying on the on-ramp.
Okay. So you have doubts about these. Do you think there was actually a woman out there? It just wasn't Tanova, or have you thought about it that far? Or?
That could have been. I don't know. That part I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know about that. So.
Okay. All right, so we have these sightings. As you just heard, everybody, Tamara's not inclined to believe these two sightings, calls that I guess happened right around. We just need to make clear these calls were made not long after she was seen on camera by you that Sunday.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, everybody should know we're doing this interview on July 24th of 2025. Now I'll come back to what I wanted to ask you before regarding searches. Did you go out there? Did other people go out there kind of looking around it? Let's say she did walk off. Let's say she tripped and hit her head. Of course, I hope she's still alive. But let's just say that did you go out there and search, and what did you find? Where did you search around that area?
Yeah, I had the missing persons advocate. She got a little search team. Mm-hmm. I think it was her and one other person, and it was I. So we went out there and we looked all around the property, the exit. We just kind of looked all around to see if there was any clues or anything of Tanova, but we did find a bag of clothes that were my sister's from her room. Remember, she had all her stuff there, all her bags of stuff, and it had lotion, other things that I had messages that I even sent to the missing person advocate that she was asking for this product, and sent screenshots to my other sister to pick it up. So it was a Jergens Glow, a self-tanning lotion, and that was in there. A nightgown top that she wore all the time was in there. And then we found some other stuff too. We found somebody else's purse. We found a lot of things thrown in those woods, but we did locate a bag of Tanova's. I believe it was Tanova stuff. I don't know what it was.
Let's break this down a little bit more. Where in relation to America's Best, where did you find these items? Where did you find them?
So, if you would walk out of her room and turn, if you're standing out of the room and you turn left, that's a sidewalk. She was at the very end, and you just walk down that sidewalk, and there's the road, and there's the fence. It was thrown over the fence right there.
So a bunch of clothes. Bunch of clothes thrown over the fence right there. Okay.
Yeah, so what we were kind of thinking is with the film and what I seen, and it showed she was carrying stuff. Maybe she dropped one of the bags, and maybe one of the, housekeepers or somebody maybe just threw the bag over the fence.
Okay. But just to be clear, though, in this stuff, you didn't actually find anything with Tanova's name on it, or were these things, if they were items, their clothes, were these things that she would wear? What do you think?
Yeah, so we didn't find anything with her name on it, but what I did do is I took that bag of clothes. It was frozen. I thawed it out, and we tore it open. And as soon as I tore it open, my niece and my sister were naming the clothes, and were in shock and saying what size they were, because some of them belonged to her. So I picked up a pair of yellow shorts, and my sister said that size 11. Those are Arizona. Those are mine. Because they lived in the same house and everything was just kind of packed up. Right. They were naming off stuff, so that's why I said I'm pretty sure it was my sister's stuff.
All right, so pretty sure. Of course, not positive, nothing scientific, but knowing your sister, knowing her size, knowing clothes that you have that might have gotten mixed in there, you think that those were hers.
I do.
Okay. All right. When was the search done? How long after February 2nd was this done?
Oh, I don't know. It was in February. I'm not exactly.
All right.
Maybe
So within a few
not
weeks
even
after.
a week. Yeah, not long.
Okay. So you're out there. Did you go out there after that, like in March or later that year? How many searches have been done? How far have the searches gone in any direction?
I can't even tell you how many times I walked the highway. I was in every ditch, under all the bridges. I mean, I don't even know how many times I walked both sides of that highway. Miles, like 2 exits down. I could only go so far on the right side where the America's Best was because it was tore up, dirt.
Yeah.
And at one time they shut that side down and merged everybody on the other side. So it was limited on that side what anybody could even do. But I looked all around. So.
Mm-hmm. But that one area, like you said, those clothes, those are the only things that you were able to pick up. You were like, I think this is Tanova's. You didn't encounter any other items that could be connected to her.
No, nothing.
Okay. Okay, so she walks off. These clothes are found seemingly in the same direction. She might have come back to her room. Unfortunately, you were not allowed to watch anymore by the employee at the America's Best. So we don't know if she came back later that day or she just walked off from there. We don't know if she got picked up. Given that her phone, I guess, was eventually found in the hotel room, nothing can help us with pings for later that day or anything. But maybe we should go back to those items that were found in the hotel room. How soon was it that her purse and phone and everything were actually found in the bathtub? How long did that take?
2 days, I believe.
All right, so 2 days. So the bathtub was not automatically drained, like when you went in there and drained?
No.
Okay. In going through that room, like, I know that you weren't the one that eventually cleaned it up, but going through it did you find anybody else's stuff? Any other women's or men's IDs, phones, clothes, anybody that would have caused you to think, you know what, somebody else was here as well?
I found cigarette butts that my sister don't smoke cigarettes, and I didn't really find anything else. I just looked at everything. There was nothing else I really found in there.
Okay.
That belonged to anybody else but cigarette butts by the door.
Okay. Was the door locked? I guess it was locked, being that the employee had to let you in. It was locked.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I am going to give you an opportunity to talk about something. Once again, how much you want to get into it is up to you. And, of course, this is being recorded. So if I think we go too far with this, I may have to take some of it out, just to be honest with you. But, when we had talked, and it's been a while since you and I have spoken on the phone. We've traded a lot of messages over Messenger, but this is the first time we've spoken on the phone. But you did talk to me about, corruption allegations and some things regarding the investigation into Tanova's disappearance. How much do you want to say about that?
Yeah, there was rumors from the beginning that there was cops involved, whether that was the people spreading those rumors or not. Mm-hmm. The first detective actually was shortly after, maybe a year after, 9 months after Tanova's case that he was on, he had to resign due to obviously whatever. But Blackman Township themselves told me that he had to resign and he was no longer allowed to work in law enforcement in Jackson County ever again.
Okay. So this would have been the first person, once again, where even if you mention them, I'm going to have to delete it. But this is the first male, first guy, police officer, male, involved. He took the report, and in looking into this, he was the first person, but he is no longer with law enforcement anymore.
Correct.
And there, once again, I don't know how much we can get into this. Allegations of things that he shouldn't have been doing while a police officer.
I mean, allegations that he was extorting the prostitutes at the hotel for sexual favors and just things along those lines.
Okay. Did you find out, once again, you don't have to use any names, but when did you first hear about this? Did you first hear about this just shortly after you found out Tanova was missing, or a year later? When did this come to you, and who told you about this?
So we have to remember when Tanova came up missing February 2nd of 2020, we went into lockdown March, I want to say 14th or something like that. So I heard things prior to that, but everything was just kind of crazy. And then when COVID hit, obviously we were all like quarantined, right? So things were just kind of settled. Just a few phone calls here and there from people. That's it. Nothing major. Soon as we got out of quarantine, I think that was in May. I want to say it was May, but I started immediately getting calls again, and I was getting calls from different police departments as well. So around that time, and then after I already heard things about that detective, he calls me to talk to me. So things all just kind of started happening all at the same time when we got out of COVID. Like, I got a lot of information. So it was around the same time he contacted me. And I'm guessing that's because maybe he contacted other people and the word got around. I'm not sure.
Okay. So you're saying there's some conspicuous timing going on here?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I really think that's probably as much as we can get into this, but maybe we need to also say, you've already mentioned that maybe when Tanova was speaking to Michael about a job, it could have had something to do with sex work. Was Tanova doing sex work? Or of course, it often comes up when we talk about women who are into drugs, sometimes have sex for drugs. Was she doing that? Do we know?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. She wasn't doing that prior because she never really had to. Like I said, she stayed at home, so she always had, I think, everything she needed. But getting thrown out of the house, I read Tanova's diary. Tanova was one of those people that she had a diary and she wrote. She kept track of like her thoughts, all kinds of things. Tanova just always was writing. She was like a writer. So I read. And she would just put like key points of what she has to do to get to point A to point B and where her life was at. And one of the things she wrote, she would write on there who she talked to that day, like at this agency or whatnot. Mm-hmm. She wrote on there that, what am I going to do? I'm getting kicked out. I have nowhere to go. I have no job. I have nowhere to turn. I have no help. She just kept writing that stuff over and over. So I think Tanova was like at a point of no return, and she was willing to do anything to make sure she had a place for her and her daughter.
Did you end up this? I'll just call it a journal. I don't know what you. Did you find this journal in the room? Where was it?
It was in the room.
What was the last entry in it? Was that what you just said there? Was that the last entry, or was there something else that was the last entry?
The last entry was that, and then she had a doctor's appointment. She ended up going to the doctor. She was sick, and that's where those antibiotics, those pills came from. So she jotted down that she went to the doctor's, and then she had an appointment the very next day at Allegiance. Uh-huh. She wrote all that down like after the doctor's appointment, but that was the last thing she wrote down.
Okay.
And I think that was like on Friday or something. I can't remember now, but it was like a couple days before and it was the weekend when she came up missing, so it was right before the weekend, but I just don't remember the exact date.
Any people's names in there that who you have bothered to check out? Once again, I'm not here to get into names, but any names that gave you any leads, any more leads? Of course, we've talked about Michael. We've talked about these people in the Jeep. Of course, we've talked about your father, other people. But any other people that got mentioned in that diary that were like, maybe this person knows what happened to Tanova?
No, and that's like, also she was a private person, so she was very private, and that was part of like the schizophrenia. So like she wouldn't put real like personal situations, like it would just be like doctor's appointments or things that she has to do, stuff like that, or like maybe like something major upcoming, and or just her personal feelings. But she's not one to talk too much about other stuff like that. She wouldn't put things like that down on paper.
Okay.
No. I mean, what if her child picked it up or something? She was also really worried about her kids finding out or knowing anything. It's just, you don't have to do it in front of us for us all to know what's going on, you know?
Okay.
So.
Okay.
She was kind of private, if that makes sense.
Okay. Where do you stand? I don't know where you live, none of my business, but do you still go to the America's Best area? Are you inclined to believe that the answers are still at the America's Best? Do you think maybe the answers to her disappearance are somewhere else? Where do you sit with this now in 2025, Tamara?
So, I mean, when all this happened, I created a Facebook page, Shut America's Best Down. And once they found out, they sent a lady over to my mom to talk to her about stuff and pretend like she was going to help my mom with everything. But she said, whatever you do, we have to basically get your daughter to stop doing what she's doing. It's making these people angry. It's not going to help. So my mom was on me to stop, and my mom got that girl a phone because she didn't have anywhere to live and things like that. And my mom was paying for the bill and found the phone and went through it. And my mom had received an email from another person connected to the America's Best, but that lady that they sent over there jotted down this email, sent it in the email to the other girl that sent it to her to tell me basically to stop, to back off, or something bad was going to happen. And I actually posted that email to my Facebook page, and I gave it to the cops, but they act like it's just pointless, basically. This is worth nothing.
Something bad was going to happen? Really?
Yeah, it's on my Facebook page. I posted it. It's just, They say, like, you better tell your daughters to back off. These people aren't nothing to play with. Kelly at the America's Best is not happy with what your daughter's doing. They better, stop, basically.
Or what?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I said. But my mom was just scared, crying like, stop, no, don't do this. I don't need anything happening to you. She's just like, so I took the page down, and I stopped trying to bring public knowledge to that because it was scaring my mom to death because of that email. Right. And I told her I didn't care.
Right. All right, so you wanted to shut the America's Best down. Oh, I guess it's still in business, right?
Oh, yeah, it's not going anywhere.
All right, and does Kelly, the employee, still work there?
Oh, yeah, she's works there. She's the
still there 5 years later?
The show. Yep, she's running the show.
Okay. And do you think, once again, that the answers to this disappearance are still in that area, or?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
I do, especially after, you can't tell me anything after they sent that. They collaborated and did all that and to send that to my mom, and don't tell your daughter about this. Whatever you do, don't tell your daughter about this. And you delete this email as soon as you get it. So, yeah.
Have you, I realize we've been talking for some months now, Tamara. Did you ever show me that email? I don't think that I've seen it. I guess it's public if you post it on your page. I guess I'll have to find it. I don't specifically remember reading it myself.
Yeah, I posted it on my page. We talked about so much.
Yeah, we have.
Was,
That's true. We have.
yeah, I sent it to you though. It's
Okay.
like right on my page.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
No, that's
but
all right.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, there's so much to this
I
case.
know.
There's so many things.
I realize that, and anytime we do an interview, yeah, I realize that there may be just have to keep it to the major points sometimes, and certainly if a situation where you're trying to find out what has happened to your sister, she was last seen at this business, and then the business is sending a message to your mother saying she better back off or else what? Are they going to get a lawyer after you? I mean, or is it something more serious than that? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, because she said at the end, she said, you and Lenny need to stop your family from saying this is very dangerous and don't tell anybody.
All right.
So she just, she's like, and don't call me about this either. Like, she's just like, and there's a lot more to what she said, like a lot. So she's just, she's mad about the Facebook page. Kelly's upset because I created a petition, and that's what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had so many signatures on it, and I was to shut the place down. And she's like, your daughter created this petition to take to the government. They were just basically, warning my mom, but why would somebody do that if there's nothing going on?
It just, for a business, this sounds overtly forceful. Usually, when something like this happens, a person gets a letter from a lawyer. A cease and desist, some Smith and Brown partners in law sending you and that's not what happened here.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Tamara, what's this been like? Of course, it's been over 5 years now. I know you're working hard. And, going out there, as you stated, walking on the highways, trying to look for anything connected to Tanova. I mean, this is obviously not what you plan to be doing with your life at this point in 2025. And, how have you fit this into everything else that you need to be doing in your life?
I basically put everything on hold for almost 2 years. I didn't do anything except every day go out and look for my sister.
What does your older sister had to say about all this? Or your parents too. Maybe let's start with them. What does your parents had to say about all this?
Well, my mom was extremely sick, but she's passed away now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So my mom was just extremely sick, and it was a lot for her. All she could do was cry. She didn't know what to do or where to turn. She barely had the energy to do anything. So, my dad, I don't think he wanted to believe it, or, and he had to take care of my mom. So they were kind of stuck. They didn't know what to do. And my sister is, really, what can a drug addict do? And when they're all your friends, like, what do you do when you're hooked on drugs, So that's kind of how that went down. It was only me.
All right, so really what you're saying is you were spearheading this. Of course, your mother's deceased, sorry to hear that, but you're the one in your family who's doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. You did mention a Facebook page. Of course, you mentioned putting stuff maybe on your personal page as well. And by the way, while we're talking, I did get your message through Messenger. Thank you. I got that. Thank you. You have a Facebook page, website, anything like that set up for Tanova's disappearance. Why don't you tell people about it right now?
I don't have anything set up. The missing persons advocate set up a missing persons page for Tanova. So if you just Google her name,
Okay.
it help us find Tanova. There's a page. So,
Okay.
and if you contact the page, it goes straight to the missing persons advocate, I believe.
Okay.
At this point,
I should ask about this. What about Tanova's daughter? Who is your mother is deceased? Who is raising her daughter? Who is her guardian now here in 2025?
when everything happened, Tanova moved with me, and I moved her like 2 hours away where I was living. So put her in school there. When my mom was passing away, I moved from there back to Jackson. And Thailand stayed there and continued. She graduated and she goes to Oakland University now.
Look at her. Wow, that's fantastic. How old is she now?
She's 19.
19.
She's going to be 20.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm vaguely familiar with Oakland University. That's a pretty good school.
Yeah, it was where we were living right down the street, and that was one of the reasons why, so that my daughter could, go, because we were going Rochester, so we lived next door to the high school and down the street from the university.
Wow.
But we moved back, and Thailand, she continued, and she went there, so.
Wow. I have to ask, a lot of things about her remind you of Tanova?
A lot, yeah. A lot of good things. So
Yeah. Yeah, of course, the good things, of course. Yes, yes, of course. I realize Tanova, unfortunately, of course, brought on by mental health. We always have to remember this, that she was living a very difficult life. But I think we have to remember, given that the first thing maybe that affected her in her life was her mental health, we have to start thinking this is not something maybe where she chose necessarily to get into all of these things, but it all came from having some mental health issues.
Yes, it did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad.
I think you're right. I think there's more and more, 9 years into this podcast, talking a lot about all of these difficult topics, I'm more and more convinced that could it be that a lot of people are becoming addicts with meth or heroin or whatever? Is it coming from underlying mental health issues that are never addressed? I'm open to that idea, even though I'm not in the medical profession. But that's certainly the way it sounds like for Tanova to me.
I think so. That's exactly what I think.
Tamara, any final words before we complete this interview?
No, I think, we really touched on a lot of important key points with this situation. I'm just at a standstill, so we're just at a complete standstill. I actually called several times yesterday just to, get any updates or talk to them before this, and the lady who works the test gave me the higher ups number and said, if they don't call you back, reach out. I said thank you. That's where I'm at with it. We're just still getting the runaround.
Okay. Tamara, it's finally happy to have you on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
And that was my July 24th, 2025 interview with Tamara, next oldest sister of Tanova Ross. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. I made a map analysis video for Tanova's case. Please find it on Unfound's YouTube channel. I think you can now understand what I mean by the theme of this episode. Tanova had so much going on. Drug issues, mental health issues, which I will insist is what started her problems initially. Raising a daughter, moving or getting moved from her parents' house to another house to the America's Best, needing money and seemingly deciding to try porn to get it. And this was obviously on her mind, as you heard Tamara say. Tanova wrote in her journal about the problems she was having. This would then seem, especially given that Tanova was stumbling around the day she disappeared, that she walked off and died somewhere in the area. And from a stats point of view, this is probably the best choice. Yet, does our experience tell us that other theories should be considered? Yes, I think so. Tanova was very vulnerable leaving the hotel like that. Anybody could have picked her up. Likewise, we know that those types of establishments don't bring in the best people, especially when we think about the men who may be staying at a place like that. Likewise, we have to be open to the idea that Tanova was already having sex for drugs, like many women featured on this podcast have done. However, I would rule out the idea of actual sex trafficking, as in Tanova was picked up and taken to another state for purposes of sex work. Demographically, I just don't think she's the right type. So I think some theories can be ruled out. However, anybody who is attempting to resolve this case has his or her hands full. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of Tanova Ross, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, sign up, and partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. And that's the program. I'm Ed Dunsel, and you've been listening to Unfound.